Okay, so here we are. We're going to be going through the respiratory system. So these are the things that you're going to want to know for the OA and make sure you get these down pat. I would take a pause, make sure to write these down, and maybe check them off as you know that you can understand and comprehend them well. Okay, so I like to get started with a very simple copy that. So go ahead and take a pause and copy that. So ventilation is the delivery of oxygen to the lungs and the expulsion of carbon dioxide and water out of the lungs. Gas exchange, some people get these two confused, but gas exchange is actually the diffusion, the process of the diffusion of oxygen into the bloodstream and the diffusion of carbon dioxide out of the bloodstream. So if carbon dioxide is going out, there is going to be a gas exchange. Okay? So pH, blood pH is the regulation of the acid-base levels of blood. And you can go ahead and look through the other ones, but those are some of the important ones. Avioli. The alveoli are little air sacs at the end of the bronchioles. Parietal pleura. Excuse me. Parietal pleura. There we go. Once again, some of these things are hard for me to enunciate, so I'd be spelling some stuff. But basically, that's the outer layer. Okay, that lines the thoracic wall, the diaphragm, the structures within. The visceral pleural is inner. Another way I like to remember and the difference, the parietal, I think perimeter, I think fence, visceral pleural. So if I remember the parietal pleural, it reminds me of perimeter, outer, the visceral pleural is naturally going to be inner, right? So it's the inner thin, slick membrane that covers the surface of the lungs and dips spaces between the separate lobes. The conchae, so that's basically giving it more surface area so that the air can flow and help bring incoming air in contact with the moist, warm walls. We have superior, middle, and inferior. Very simple. The larynx. So the larynx, we have the thyroid cartilage on the left, and then we have which is also known as the Adam's apple. That's why I put an apple, and it's like the voice box. So I have a little microphone and a little heart because the actual thing, the shape kind of reminds me of a heart. The cervioid cartilage, it reminds me of the word circle, and that's mindful because it actually is a ring, right, that forms the inferior border of the larynx. So circle, ring, that inferior border of the larynx. The two arytenoids, the only one with two. Everything else has one. So anytime you see the two, they're forming this diamond, right? And you think of a pitcher, okay? Because this actually helps us to change the pitch of our voice. So it sits on top of the circle one, and it has the vocal ligaments or the vocal cords attached to them. And the movement of this tightens and slackens, and that's what changes the pitch of your voice. Okay. Then we have the epiglottis, which is the flap. It moves up and down, and the larynx moves upwards, therefore blocking off the entrance, right? What would happen if the alveoli function is reduced in the lungs? So first of all, there would be less oxygen in the bloodstream because diffusion or lungs wouldn't be functioning properly. So if there was the alveoli function is reduced, in a way, there would be less oxygen in the blood. Internal versus external respiration. Internal, within the lungs, internal. External, you think outside the lungs, outside the body. Actually, it's within the capillaries to the tissues, so it's actually deeper within the body. Okay, diffusion. So we talked about diffusion a little bit. I was getting a little confused with diffusion and ATP and passive transport, but actually ATP requires energy, right? Everybody knows that. Then you have two types of diffusion, right? You have simple diffusion that comes across the membrane. It's just concentration from higher to lower, and it's easily. And then you have facilitated diffusion. Picture this being like, I need a bouncer. I'm getting in ham, getting in my guys, getting in my proteins, getting in there, carrying me in my homie protein. So both are passive forms. So diffusion is passive transport. So just diffusion, passive transport, and simple diffusion or facilitated diffusion, depending on what it is or where it's trying to cross, right? chemoreceptors. Whenever you see this word, think chemochemicals. So chemoreceptors are receptors like signaling, right? Monitoring what? Chemicals. Chemicals. Well, what chemicals could they be monitoring? Oxygen, carbon, CO2, H plus. So all these levels in the blood are going to send information right to the brain and help regulate respiration. So an example of this is when you have voluntary breathing and you voluntarily hold your breath. How long can you really do that before these different receptors kick in and they're like, oh, we're monitoring these levels. Something's not right. We have to override this system. Okay. Um, Talking about voluntary breathing, copy that. Copy this on the bottom, the cortical control. Cortical control. That's the voluntary control has to do with the nerve impulses from the hypothalamus and limbic system. So if you were to summarize this, I'd even put corticoid, voluntary control, hypothalamus, limbic. I'd just make that connection between the hypothalamus and the limbic and voluntary control in my brain, because that can alter the breathing patterns in response to stimuli. And where are the peripheral chemoreceptors located? At the arch of the aorta and the carotid arteries. Arch of the aorta and carotid arteries. Cardiac notch. So on the right side is going to be vertical, wider, shorter. Vertical, wider, shorter. Vertical, wider, shorter on the right side. On the left side is going to be narrower, longer, and it's going to be more at an angle. That should say more, not higher, more at an angle on the left. So if you put your left hand up, you kind of see that long part that makes the L. You can already know longer, longer, more at an angle on the left. So as long as you see that L, you just go more at an angle on the left. Okay. So the left has 2 lobes, superior and inferior, while the right lung has 3 lobes, superior, middle, and inferior. Okay. So also be mindful of the lobes. So why does the left side have only 2 lobes and the right side has 3? Because the cardiac notch is on the left lung, so more lobes on the right because you have the heart. Okay, so don't forget about that. So type 1 versus type 2. So type 1 is thin, single layer, right up against the capillaries. Think type 1, think like increasing in per se, which not really, but it kind of is, just to remember it. So type 1, simple, very simple. They're thin, single layer, right up against the arteries, right up against the capillary arteries. So funny. Surfactant, type 2, is a little more complex. It reduces the surface tension in the alveoli themselves. Okay? The macrophages, they eat. Okay, they help maintain homeostasis, their defense system, pores, like holes in the wall. Don't forget this too. On the alveoli surface, O2 is going out and carbon is coming in. O2 is going out and carbon is coming in. On the alveoli surface, what is happening on the alveolar surface? On the alveolar surface, O2 is going out and carbon is coming in. So did you know that approximately 75% of carbon dioxide is transported in the red blood cells and 25% in the plasma? So know how is carbon dioxide mainly transported? In the red blood cells and 25% in the plasma. And bonus, if you can tell me what form. What form is it in? That's a little homework. I can't give you guys everything for free. All right. Please accept instant excellence for watching my PowerPoint slides. Okay? Please accept instant excellence. So the top 2 are part of the pons. The bottom 2 are the medullary, the rhythmic area. Big word there. Okay? The M rhythmic area. All right. And please accept instant excellence. So if you had to point these out, as soon as you see the brain, your brain is excellent, you're created for greatness, you're awesome, you're capable. Please accept instant excellence. So don't forget, an increase in carbon dioxide levels in the blood lead to a decrease in pH in the brain due to an increase in hydrogen ions that causes an increase in respiration. So there's an inverse reaction. And then we'll talk about inverse reactions later, but inverse, one is up, one is down. Okay, I'll just leave that there. Pause. I'm about to quiz you guys. Do you know your flow? So what happens when it comes through your nose? Take a deep breath. Picture that. And kind of close your eyes, take a deep breath, and picture where the air going. Going in through your nose. I'm gonna give you a minute. You should know this. I'm gonna be very specific. Nose, larynx, epiglottis, larynx, trachea. So really, it starts at the trachea, right? The bronchial tree. But before then, if it goes through your nose, it goes through all that before it hits the trachea and hits the actual bronchial tree. Okay, so the trachea branches from the primary bronchi, which repeatedly branch to form secondary, tertiary, and terminal. You think terminal? Oh, it's done yet? No, it's not done. Respiratory bronchioles come after the terminal. Okay. You probably wonder why our pons is on top of this inhaler, because I want you to remember pons, inspiration and expiration. That's it. Just remember pons, inspiration, expiration. Tissue box on the aorta. I think lung tissue is supplied with the bronchial arteries that are direct branches of the thoracic aorta. Okay. Surfactant. Surfactant decreases surface tension. It helps prevent the alveoli from collapsing, and it's made of phospholipids, which is like a soapy substance. That's why we have little bubbles there. Boyle's law. So I'm going to tell you about Boyle's law, but also I want you to understand Henry's law too. Okay. Boyle's law is the inverse relationship. All you have to remember is an inverse relationship. To help you explain this fancy definition here, look at the Y in Boyle and look at the L. What's the Y doing? The Y is sloping down and the L is sloping up. That's it. One goes down, one goes up, one goes up, one goes down. So if you have options on the test and both of them are increase, increase, that one's not right. If one of them is decrease, decrease, that one's not right. So now you just eliminated two options on your test. So now you just have to be mindful about what's really supposed to be increasing here, what's really supposed to be decreasing here. Because Boyle's law is an inverse relationship, where one will be increasing and one will be decreasing according to its volume under conditions of constant mass and pressure. So for this one here, I really think experiences really value residual value. So experiences would be awesome. You would be able to have so many different experiences if you had residual value of money, right? And it's in the green area. Amen, right? All right. So I really think experiences really value residual value. Pick up the paper, cover up that right side, and I really inspiratory reserve. Think title, experiences, exploratory reserve value, residual value. Okay. Once you get that down, you'll know that the first two make up inspiratory capacity. The bottom two makes functional residual capacity. The right, that first three makes the vital capacity, and all of them make total lung capacity. You're probably wondering what these all are. I have a cute little slide coming up with them. But the tidal volume is the volume of air that moves through the lungs between normal inhalation and exhalation. Tidal. So think the lungs. The keywords here are through the lungs between normal. Because something might ask you normal, but it might say exhalation. So if it says normal exhalation, that's the expiratory reserve value. But if it's saying normal inhalation, right, it's the inspiratory reserve value. And if it says the tidal volume, that's in the lungs between a normal inhalation and exhalation. Okay? So that's the volume of air that moves through the lungs between a normal inhalation and exhalation. Inspiratory reserve volume is the maximum amount of volume that can be inhaled further after a normal inhalation is already taken in. The expiratory reserve volume is the maximum volume of air that can be exhaled further. So after a normal exhalation has already been released. Then you have the residual value, which is the minimum amount of air that needs to be present in the lungs. That prevents it from collapsing. Like you don't even really use that. Functional residual capacity is the entire volume of air still present in the lungs after a normal exhalation. So after you expire, that stays there. You think about it. What stays there? The residual volume, because I just said, like, if you didn't have that, your lungs would collapse. And the expiratory reserve volume is the maximum amount of air that's inhaled after normal exhalation is released. So that's the functional residual capacity. The vital capacity is the amount of air that can be exhaled after maximum inhalation. It is the sum of inspiratory reserve, tidal volume, and expiratory reserve. It does not, NOT, include residual volume. Can somebody tell me why? You need it so you don't die. Okay. Total lung capacity. That includes everything plus what you need to hold your lungs open. Okay? And if you were trying to jot that down very fast and pause the video, let me give you an opportunity to do that with better information on my slide. There you go. Go ahead and hit pause. You can write all those definitions down there on the right. So hopefully that helps you out. Gotcha. Got you guys. All right. Exhale. So I'm going to read this and I want you to take a pause and try and explain it in your own words. Okay? Not my words, but your words. Not my will, but your will, Lord. Amen. All right. So during forceful breathing, an example when exercising, the abdominal and intercostal muscles contract. As they contract, they decrease down, right? Decrease the volume of the abdominal region in the thoracic cavity, which increases inverse reaction, right? Increases the pressure of the lungs, causing air to flow out faster. All right, so everybody, thank you so much. Make sure to go through all of your course content, finish your labs, your study guide, review these videos right before the OA, talk with your professor as needed, as often as needed, and take notes and review your notes and be confident in the Lord and pass your test. This should be pretty much a good overview to get you past that competent line on the lung section. All right, so as long as you are studying this and you have done your study guide, your OA, you went through your course content, you are good to go. And here are the scriptures that you can stand on for study. But there's a vital force in the spirit of intelligence and the breath of the Lord, of the Almighty, gives them understanding. So the understanding is already in us, the intelligence is already in us. We ask God to give us understanding. So in Psalms it says, with your help, basically, I can scale a wall. And I just added a new one to my videos, and it's this one, Hebrews 10, verse 23. Without wavering, let us hold tightly to the hope we say we have for God and be trusted to keep his promise. So if God brought you here, he's going to be faithful. He can keep his promise. Everything's going to be good. You're going to be blessed. You're going to be provided for. Don't waver. Hold tight to the hope we say we have. Hold tight to Jesus, and you can do this. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Amen. Thank you again. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share.